Hello and welcome to EPR with your favorite environmental enthusiasts, Nick and Laura. On today's episode, Laura and I talk about how we give back. We talk to Ben Shepard about consulting, working on the I-4 project, and giving back to his community. And finally, our bird of the day is the crested caracara. They look like a hawk, behave like a vulture, and are actually a falcon. They are the only falcons that make nests. They love solving puzzles, and perhaps most mischievously, they love stealing red objects like hats or gloves. So if you are in the southern part of the United States and you see a really wild looking eagle that sits on the ground, it will take your red stuff. So how about that? They really are super cool birds. They look amazing. You got to check them out. So
they are cool birds, but they also like to sit on fences.
Yeah. Is that like you're talking? They don't make decisions. Like they're like, we'll just see how this plays out.
Yes. They sit on fences and ponder.
Yeah. I mean, I could eat, but all right. Hit that music.
We'd like to give a great shout out to Perkins Coie for sponsoring this episode. Perkins Coie is a leading global law firm dedicated to helping the world's most innovative companies solve the legal and business challenges of tomorrow. Learn more about their work and values at www.perkinscoie.com, which is PERKINSCOIE.com. Let's get to our segment. How are we monsters? I'm not a monster.
No, because you made the joke about giving back, and you're like, I basically everything I do is giving back. No, but giving back takes a lot of different forms, right? I think it's really cool to have our guest really is doing a lot of other things to give back to the community he's in. I'm actually in a new community, so I'm kind of literally looking for where's my give back? Where is that? So I'm actually looking for new spots to do that exact thing. And sometimes it just takes a minute. Like I love the idea of teaching. I think that's wonderful. I used to do that back in the day. But there's all kinds of volunteer organizations. I'm actually literally like going through the process of trying to figure out where I can do that. I mean, I don't know if you know this about me, Laura, but I get really antsy if I'm not doing anything.
So, but I didn't think you had time to not do anything, though.
Yeah. But even so, I try to fill like every gap for whatever reason. I want to fill it up with something, and like I have to let go of some things to find more community-based things to do. I just like doing it. I can't help it. I like being out. But you're the same way. I mean, I know you have like you're.
Well, that's what I was thinking when you were saying that. Like, typically, people who give back are the people who are already doing a lot, and then they just do more. Like our guest is like, "Oh, I have this job, and I'm working on 18 million projects, and then I also do this and that."
Right.
I've seen that before with other guests, but yeah, I mean, giving back is there's volunteer work, but then there's also work you can do as giving back, but you still get paid, like the career coaching that I do. It's not something I should be doing. It takes up time away from me building the companies I want to build.
Right.
But I feel like there's a need for it. And so I still do it. But then my give back is that I'm not charging as much as some people out there are. But then there's also like in my companies, as I build them, I'm making sure there are opportunities we have a first time author award in the book publishing company. So we're giving back by publishing a free book for someone every year. And then we have discounts for artists and teachers. So there's give backs kind of built into all of that. But then there's okay, I'm done with work. I'm going to go volunteer at the SPCA. There's that kind of give back too. So I think if you say what kind of community stuff you're doing, people are automatically like, well, you mean on my weekend?
Yeah. Oh man. But there's also different ways. Like, I mean, I helped one of my friends build a garden bed, like a 4x10. And I went to go get wood and mulch or compost. I was corrected actually. Mm-hmm. And it's like, 26 bags of compost. That's a ton of compost. I didn't realize how much you needed to build something like that. And, he's like, oh, I'll split it with you. I'm like, we're good. Yeah, I owe you. So, those count as give backs too. It's nice to see that, to do that kind of thing when you have the ability to. And I don't know, but I still kind of like, I think like when you get into your 40s, like your sense of community is really, really important. And, I think you moved to New York, you're building your community. I'm building mine here. And it's really cool to see. And so it's funny that, because Casey asked us that and I'm like, that's a great question. I'm trying to figure out where is my gift? Where can I find that now?
Yeah. And then there's just the give back where you just give him money. And the frustrating thing for me, being an entrepreneur and always like bootstrapping everything, there are things that I wanted to give money to, or I have given to for a little while, adopted an elephant for a while. I would love to adopt another elephant, but I'm like, okay, when I reach this point, so you have to, I guess for most people who are in the positive mindset, the more they get, the more they give. So that's why you end up with people who are so busy already, but they're so grateful for those things that then they feel like I have to keep giving back also.
Yeah. And like, I don't know. It's kind of like, it's funny. First of all, shout out to Elephant Nature Park in Thailand, by the way. That is one that I have actually donated to as well and been to, and it's wonderful. And if you're ever going to Thailand, you should do that.
Okay. Daphne Sheldrick in Kenya, same thing.
So, yeah, but no, I mean, even like organizationally, right? Like in NAEP, I'm about to become the vice president, and it's because I want.
Who's letting you do that? I
don't know. I don't know. I'm very thankful for it, but that's it. For me, it's like it helped me a ton, especially early in my career, and we've got a lot of stuff going on, and it feels like the right thing to do, even if it's going to be hard and I don't have time for it. I really, really want to do it, and I'm excited to do it because of that.
Which I didn't even think of.
Yeah,
this podcast is a lot of our time. It's kind of a lot of give back. It's a lot of give back.
Yeah, it is funny because, like, I don't know, even small things like it's trying to find speakers that people want to listen to, and like every time I see Casey's face, I'm like, oh yeah, I gotta remind Fred to get us the contact information for the person she wants to hear from, and he has it, by the way. I just have to go find him, and I'm also saying it here so when he hears this, he'll remember to send me that info. But yeah, there's lots of ways that you can do it. And I think that's kind of the fun part, right? It should be tailored to what you like to do, Oh,
of course. Absolutely. And what you care about, obviously.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's listen to our guest. And he has lots to share about his community involvement.
And there we go. Let's get to our segment.
It was the interview. Nice try.
Dang it.
It took you that long to figure it out.
Yeah, I was like, I nailed it. I'm so good at this. Yeah. Hello and welcome back to EPR. Today we have Ben Shepard with us. Ben is the Florida Ecosciences Manager at Atkins-Realis and a lifelong environmental steward with roots in rowing, wetlands, and wildlife. Welcome, Ben. Great to have you here.
Hey, welcome. Thanks for having me.
So we love talking about people's journeys on the show, like where they started and where they ended up. And your academic journey, you thought you'd study architecture. So how did you get into biology and conservation from there?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like super crazy, but in high school, I apprenticed for an architect who did mostly historical buildings. And I used to draw a lot, and he only drew like by hand. So nothing was CAD based or on a computer. He actually doesn't even own a computer. And so, I was also rowing at the time in high school and was getting recruited to a few schools. And one of them happened to be the University of Wisconsin. And going up there, loved the campus based on the, having worked for an architect for a few years at the time. Frank Lloyd Wright he was an alumni of University of Wisconsin. And so I was like, of course they're going to have an architecture program. Get to the university. Of course they don't have an architecture program. His studio for a long, long time was in Chicago. He had built an entire neighborhood in Madison where the University of Wisconsin is. And yet, nothing. So it was kind of searching around the campus for what would stick, what I liked doing. And I kept coming back to the environmental program. And it turns out that Wisconsin has a great environmental program going back to the late 1800s, early 1900s.
Wow.
And there's a whole history there. So that's what kind of started me into the path. And from there, I really didn't know what I was going to do when I graduated. So I did the best thing, which is go to grad school and not think about it for another.
Yep. I know the feeling.
Yeah. So did that, moved back to Florida where I'm from, and started the journey really.
So, okay. So you decided you're like, hey, I'm going to do conservation and I'll learn how to do it in Wisconsin. And then I'm going to go back to Florida, which I can't think of at a climate further away from Wisconsin. And that's where I'll do it. Was there like a shock when you started?
Yeah.
Did you do field work and you're like in your first wetland? You're like, why did I Why did I to myself?
So the two like really stories that stick out like at the university there, one was I took a dendrology class, and it just so happened that it was in winter. So we weren't looking at a lot of leaves.
I'm about to say.
It was a lot of bark. And that kind of hones like some skills for me. And the second was I took a class in ichthyology, so like fishes. And Wisconsin is historically known for their limnology program, which is the study of inland water systems. So it's up there with like Yale, and I think there's a few others that are really world renowned. And in that ichthyology class, there's myself and another teammate from the rowing team. And again, frozen tundra. And they're like, hey, go do some studies out there. And we literally walked along the frozen lake to a bunch of like people doing ice fishing. And, did it after practice thinking like people will just be getting out there. No, there's like some people that are like absolutely hammered, like 9 in the morning, like out there fishing.
Yeah.
That's Wisconsin.
Yes. Yes. So yeah, that's what it really started it with. It's like fun to talk about and experience. None of it translated to coming back to Florida. And it was really like starting over. The one piece that did translate, and this was something that my major professor at university was into, was habitat restoration and specifically using fire. Whoa. So when I got into grad school, I focused on fire as a restoration tool and did my study in the panhandle of Florida on Eglin Air Force Base, where they do a lot of dry burns.
Yeah.
So that's what started it. That's what kind of the link to Wisconsin was, and then just kind of went from there. Yeah.
And you were like, I am never dealing with cold ever again. I know.
Yeah. I just went back. I just went back to Wisconsin this year, and it's the first time in a long time. It's like I'll never visit in the winter. It's just
right. But yeah, so tell us a little bit. So you've gone through that process. You're at Atkins Realis now. You've been there for 20 years. So what's kind of kept you rooted in Atkins? And like, we'll dive into what you're doing on a day-to-day as well.
Yeah. So I'll caveat that. So I started actually at a firm called PBS&J. It was founded in Florida, and it was through like kind of a family connection. Somebody that knew somebody, and they were hiring an entry level, basically hold a GPS and go help flag some wetlands on a couple of projects. And for your listeners, I was hired in 2007 at PBS&J. The recession recession hit like shortly thereafter. And so the building I'm in, which we owned at the time, 3-story building, had like 400 people in it. Today, there's maybe 80 to 100, and we cover one floor. So I try to tell my junior staff now, like there's some perspective on like this place was packed, and that really was a crunch. And so what ended up happening was I tried to become a jack of all trades and kind of learn the whole consulting field. And one of the ways we did it was PBS&J had a really strong oil and gas program at the time. We had a lot of clients in Louisiana and Texas, and I took that opportunity. So I actually had an apartment here in Florida and one in I split between Houston and Shreveport, and had a standing flight every 2 weeks, and would fly there, stay there for 2 weeks, fly back for 2 weeks. And so I was doing field collection stuff the 2 weeks out there, and then the data processing back here. And we're permitting big gas pipelines. And we happened to translate that into pretty big gas pipeline project called FGT Phase 8, which was I think a 36-inch liquid natural gas pipeline that started in Mobile and went all the way to Miami. So it's like 480 miles with all the laterals and everything. We did all the wetland delineations, all the species surveys, all the permitting through the Corps, DEP, FERC, you name it. And
that's like literally opposite of Wisconsin. Like,
yeah.
And that is wetlands in Louisiana.
Totally.
Yikes.
Totally. So that's what started it all for at least 4 years. I transitioned out of PBS&J. They were acquired by Atkins, and I went to go work at the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission for a few years there, and that was a great experience too. So
awesome. Yeah. That's a long history, and they've been traded so many times. What is it? Does it change every time? So for someone who doesn't work in consulting or is starting to look into it, is that something? I know when it happens, people get terrified, but having been through several changes, what's your take on that?
Yeah, so I've actually had the process happen a few different ways. One was the transition from PBS&J to Atkins, and Atkins at the time was I think a London-based company, and it was great for us. We had more resources and more opportunities. PBS&J was mostly a transportation, oil and gas kind of firm, and Atkins was doing other things like outside of that. And so for a lot of folks, they were getting plugged into other projects. I stepped back into the Fish and Wildlife Commission, did that for a while. And then until I came back here to Atkins Realis, I was at a firm called Inwood Consulting Engineers. And by the end of my career there, I was a shareholder in the firm. I was one of 13 shareholders. And we actually sold to a bigger company. And so I could see it from that perspective on why we're selling, who we're selling to, how we're vetting those folks, and then what that process looks like to lower staff as well. So it's like, do they have opportunities, and making sure that's the right fit. So that was interesting to me. And now coming back to Atkins Realis, where we do so many things, and it's, I think we're 38,000 people on 6 to 7 continents.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of cool opportunities, like immediately getting plugged into work in Massachusetts and Texas and here in Florida, obviously, and elsewhere. Yeah, it's great.
So currently in your role, now that you're Atkins Realis, is that right? Yeah, I'm so good at getting names wrong.
I'm like really proud of you, actually.
Right? I did it. Woo! What are you doing? What kind of projects are you working on now?
So the big one that we've been plugged in with is, it's called Moving I-4 Forward. So a few years ago, the governor and state legislature approved what's called the Moving Florida Forward program. And they identified 20 projects around the state, infrastructure projects, to help bring like road improvements to reality they'd been planned, but like maybe the plans have been shelved or like something happens and they just don't have funding. And so the legislature provided the funding to get these things started. And Atkins Realis was brought in right before I was hired to do like website designs and public involvement coordination. And just through like a series of events, they needed some permitting help. And I happened to work as the deputy project manager for 2 permitting contracts that overlapped the entire project. And so I just kept saying yes, like, hey, we'll do that. And like, we'll do this. And you can absolutely do all the permitting. And it's been awesome to see. It's a crazy amount of work. So like all of the field work, the NEPA studies that have to be reevaluated. There's 7 big projects. One is actually we permitted over the winter holiday last year. Us and the Army Corps were like literally trading notes back and forth on New Year's Eve to get the permit issued in time for the contractor to like
wow.
go.
Wow.
Like I was on vacation skiing and I'm like getting a call from the Army Corps. I'm like, yes, like let's make that condition happen.
Right.
Cool,
and thanks.
Yeah. But like what's cool to see is the governor came to the I-4 office last week or earlier this week, and like the one project that we got permitted is open, and the next 3 projects are advertised, and like we're getting permits right now, and they're huge projects right through the Disney area. So it'll provide like a ton of congestion relief in an area that really needs it. There's a ton of traffic, and I think ever since COVID, a lot of people have been moving to Florida or visiting Florida way more than prior to COVID. So,
but even prior to COVID, I-4 is notorious highway.
Notorious highway. And yeah, this project is supposed to alleviate a lot of the congestion in the area. So
Oh, very fun.
Other than that, yeah, Atkins-Realis also won another of those moving Florida forward projects. It's called the I-75 phase design build. So similar concept to the I-4. We're just on a different side of it, on the contractor side. And again, we provided the permitting support, drainage to accelerate part of that project already. Like, so one of the areas is like already open. Yeah, we're looking to move species soon. Anticipation for widening the whole stretch, which is like 22 miles on either lane.
That's much needed too. All the interstates in Florida need help, yes. But also surrounded by so much wildlife. So what an important job.
Yeah, and that's kind of dovetails into something that I'm passionate about and I work a lot in is wildlife crossings. So I've had the opportunity to work in what's called DOT District 5, which has a lot of black bears, and then DOT District 1, which has bears, but really the panther is the big keystone species. And been able to like work on projects where we're building new wildlife crossings, permitting them, and then was part of a group in District 5 that permitted, it was like the first project in the nation to receive wetland credit for a new wildlife crossing. So to kind of incentivize building more, because wildlife crossings are expensive. I mean, they start at probably $2 million and go up from there.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a cool like feather in the cap, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Who initiates those projects?
So DOT is doing studies, but they're also getting input from, like NGOs and just outside science staff. It really just depends. So the one we did where we got wetland credit, that was a combination of DOT, us, universities, and like doing a big, long, like 40-mile study of the corridor. What are the issues? And like the University of Central Florida was doing like hair snare sampling for black bears and putting GPS trackers on turtle shells and tracking them along the way. And so, you could really hone in on where the wildlife crossing should go. And then it's just a matter of like programming the funding. And that's a long process, or can be.
Yeah. I can imagine.
But like, I love the idea. Like there's like a famous picture of like a mountain lion using one at one point. And, you see something like that, you're like, that's cool. That is really neat to see. And DOT does a really good job of promoting the crossings they have. And, having worked in District 1, like Brent Sechel and Nicole Monies, they help host a website that has them. Like, so you can go and click on these crossings, see the crossing. They have videos like that are updated regularly. So you can like see the panther, alligator, whatever.
You said they have tools to promote them, and my mind immediately went to the animals. So I'm picturing animals sitting down and like checking out the website. Where are these corridors? Where do we go?
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Laura, oh man, too funny. But, like I said, honestly, we probably could spend like the entire time talking about I-4, but I know you have lots of other things that you are part of too. So I want to kind of like try to see if we can marry some of that together a little. You're also on like the Lake Advisory Committee, and I hope I'm saying this right, Maitland?
Yep, City Maitland.
I nailed it. Okay. You never know, especially the further south you go, the stranger what looks like a normal word gets pronounced. But so what like kind of local government environmental concerns come up most in that community? And then how has being on there helped impact your work, how you work on bigger projects like I-4?
Yeah, I think the big issue with all lakes in Florida, and definitely in Central Florida, is the amount of growth around them, and then how people like use their property. So, having a green lawn is very important to a lot of folks. And so when you're using fertilizers and things like that, they often run off into the lakes. And as a result, you'll get like eutrophication. So a ton of things like blooming all at once, and then they die off. And could be fish kills and other stuff like that. The other big thing is invasive species that come in through a variety of ways. And so oftentimes, like not just the city of Maitland, but around Central Florida, like hydrilla is a major nuisance.
Yeah, for sure.
Chokes out the water bodies, and from just a recreating standpoint, just makes it very difficult for some of the lakes to get around.
So is that position for you just kind of like a give back?
It is. Yeah. I've tried to not that I have all the free time in the world, but I did want to do something within the community. And that was the most logical to me. I live near one of the lakes that the city of Maitland manages. I regularly paddle boat on it and run around the lake. So for me, I wanted to see something and make sure that we're doing the right things for the lake. They have a really good program at the city of Maitland. That's not the case for every municipality. And a lot of times, I think there's misinformation about how lakes are managed or why they're managed in a certain way. And one of the things on my resume is I was the project manager for the lake management plans for the Fish and Wildlife Commission for Lake Okeechobee, the Kissimmee Chain of Lakes, and lakes. So those are three major water systems in Florida. And what we would hear when we were doing all of the preliminary work with stakeholders in the area was very different. So Harris Chain, they were worried about getting on the lakes for recreating. The Kissimmee Chain, it was really well known for fishing. And the same with Okeechobee. And Kissimmee had hydrilla issues. Okeechobee has all sorts of issues, some of which were plant-based and some were based because of how the water levels are regulated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So every system is pretty unique and different. And I like providing that insight to the city of Maitland's, the council there, because a lot of it is citizen scientists or just people that live on the lake, and they want something that may not be scientifically appropriate for the area.
Right. And I mean, there's countless examples of that kind of thing. And I remember one, I can't remember exactly. It might've been hydrilla, where somebody's like, oh, I'll just chop it up with a chopper, an aquatic lawnmower.
Yeah.
But when you cut it up, it just makes way more of the plant because each one of them is so much worse. And that was a citizen science kind of I've got the solution to the problem, making it way. Yeah. So that's hard to do. So how do you manage that? Because the intention is really good. It's a noble intention that ends up being an accident. How do you avoid that kind of thing? How do you get people to hear maybe what they don't want to hear?
Yeah, it's, honestly, it's a long process. I wish I could say that you would just point to some research papers and then people would read it. And oftentimes, I'm joking about do your own research, crowd. And but really it's about approaching them or folks at their level and kind of understanding what their concerns are and why, and validating their concerns, but at the same time coming in with some of that historical knowledge and why water systems are managed the way they are. Because the big one is any sort of chemical application in the water systems and why that's used.
Right.
That seems to be the big negative. And that was when I first got on the Lakes Advisory Council at Maitland. But when you actually peeled back the data, the city of Maitland was using very little aquatic herbicide, at all. And they were managing in a way that was very sustainable moving forward. And so it was educating the council and other stakeholders about the management and why things were managed the way they were, and just putting it in very simply.
So you're working on these projects and working on the advisory committee as if you didn't have enough spare time. You're also teaching at Rollins College, right?
Yep. Yeah.
So how'd you get into teaching? And was that something you always wanted to do, or you just fell into it?
Yeah. There's two different parallel tracks that intersected at some point. One was in high school, I was on the rowing team, and two of the people that I rowed with, their dad founded the environmental studies program at Rollins.
Oh, cool.
So growing up, I've known him for 30 years almost. And so we'd always stayed in touch, and they'd had some openings for positions. And then, fast forward into my career, my previous employer, he happened to teach at Rollins as an adjunct, and he was stepping back as his kids were getting older, ready to go to college, and he wanted to spend more time before they're out of the house. He's like, hey, you want to take over this program or a couple of courses that I teach? And I was like, yeah, sure. Mm-hmm. between those two things, that's what really started it. I've grown up around Rollins College and like the idea of giving back to like kind of the next folks that are going to take this industry over. It doesn't always happen that way. One of the courses I teach is really an introductory course in environmental studies. And as a liberal arts college, Rollins requires every student, regardless of major, to take a lab. And so my lab class competes with physics and chemistry and psychology, and everyone looks at those and is like, oh, heck no, I'm going to pivot to the environmental studies, thinking it's easy A. And I think they're like sorely mistaken by like the first test.
That's so funny. As I actually did teach at VCU, Virginia Commonwealth, for basically a couple semesters after I graduated. Same exact thing. Exact thing.
I was one of those students. I got a D in science for non-majors from my AA degree.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
When I decided to go back for biology, I had to start over.
Yeah, it's rough. The first year I taught, I really didn't know what like expectations to set on myself and the students. And then by like year 3, like I'm very upfront on day 1. I was like, do not screw around with like the first exam. And like, I would have students like just not get the book and think that they could like breeze through. I'm like, like 80% of the test is from the book. Like just crack it open. Like you'll be halfway there. Yeah. So that's been interesting on like setting expectations for everybody.
Do you find that you have a handful of students or any students that are transformed during the class and really get into it?
I would like to think so. I had one last year who was he was an international affairs major, and he was super engaged. His dad was a retired EPA, like administrator, like somewhere like pretty high up in the EPA. And so I think he had like an appreciation for the environmental studies like field, and he came prepared every day, always early, always asking questions. We would like go to dinner after the class and like to hash out some stuff that he was like thinking about. And so there's been a couple of those students that are pretty memorable that stick out, and that's always super rewarding. Not the other ones that are like struggling the whole time.
Yeah, gosh, I remember even having a student once who was like, she's like, oh, I'm failing your class. And I'm like, well, technically, if you finish this lab, you'll have a D. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Well, now I don't care anymore. And I'm like, great. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah. I've had, those like kids that like will show up maybe 50% of the classes and then are surprised when they're not doing well.
Right. Yeah.
So that's always tough. The classes I taught, I did try to break it up into certain activities, do more field trips.
Yeah.
The first year, I didn't do a lot of field trips. And I think that was a disservice to the students versus like getting out in the field, like understanding why certain trees or plants are growing where they are, and, why certain animal species are attracted to those things. And so they could like read it, but then apply it in the field. And by end of the year, we've done all the tests, and it's like they are now applying the knowledge. And it's cool to see like how some of them do apply it, and they're putting the critical thinking together.
Yeah, that's very cool. And that's a great segue to our segment we call Field Notes, which is part of the show where we ask our guests to talk about memorable moments in the field doing the job. And we ask folks that are listening to send their fun, awkward, or scary stories to us at info@environmentalprofessionalsradio.com, and we will read those on a future episode. But Ben, when I tell you that, and we talked a little bit about your work in Louisiana, so what comes to mind? I mean, I feel like you have a few snake stories for us.
I've got a couple. It seems that way. Yeah, Louisiana and Texas have a lot of moccasins.
Yeah.
And there was definitely one memory that I'll never forget it. Cause like we were tromping through this area to set like a pipeline corridor, and all day we had been going through stream crossings, and we had an ATV with us. we could go through the stream crossings just fine, but we hit like one stream and there was no way this ATV was crossing.
Yeah.
Like, we have to get to this like one area, like we can see it.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense to drive all the way around all day. Like we waste half a day, like getting there. So, okay, we're just going to walk through this thing. And we get in, like GPS's above our head, like looking like we're in the movie like Platoon or something.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, no joke, like the stream is like up to my chest, and all of a sudden, like a moccasin just like swims right in front of me. And
gosh,
I'm out of nopes for the day.
Yeah.
we're just going to keep going. Yeah. Like we finished the stuff. It was not the best moment, but obviously lived to tell the tale, and it's a good story. Then
yeah, those are sour snakes. That is not a fun thing to see. So yeah, I feel you on that.
Yeah, I do have another snake story. We were working in Marco Island, so that's southwest Florida, kind of south of Naples. In this one area, it's pretty urban, but there was one area that was still kind of forested, jungly, and we were out there with the water management district looking at where the wetland was. And coworker was like right in front of me. There's a bunch of like palm fronds in the way. And she like steps on something and it's like, oh, and like kind of jumped. And I was walking right behind her and then like looked and I was like, huh?
Yeah.
And it was the biggest, fattest python I've ever seen.
Oh, wow.
It was massive, definitely over 10 feet. And the person from the water management district that was with us was on, I guess, their like python team to like hunt these things down.
Yeah.
And by the time we like all processed what was going on and what this thing was that we had stepped on, we couldn't find it. Like none of us had moved. None of us had moved. And I was like, this thing doesn't move that fast. Like what?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we looked like around the area for a good like 10, 15 minutes, couldn't find it. I was like, I think that's pretty terrifying. So we're going to wrap this up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But I mean, that speaks to one of their problems, right? Of actually trying to catch them.
It was like, I saw the quarter map. I'm going over there.
Yeah. Right. I know that guy. Yeah.
I know how to get out of here.
Totally. Yeah. They're dipping out. But yeah, those are a few snake stories. The good stories, the ones that I like being part of in the field, are just like, I don't get to in the field too often anymore, but was able to do so this week for a Cara survey. So it's
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. In Florida, they're a threatened species.
Mm-hmm.
And so they require like early morning surveys. And so you just like get the fog coming, like at least on Tuesday, we had like the fog roll in and the sunrise and it's like cool. And it was just a very nice day to be in the field. And you're like, this is what I'm in the field for.
Right.
There's been a few of those for sure.
Yeah. Those are beautiful moments. Honestly, it's like really fun to be like, when it's quiet and the weather's like a good temperature, you got like nice breeze going. It's like, honestly, you're like, why would I ever not do this? And then you do it the next day and it's 85,000 degrees and you're like, oh, right, this is why.
Yeah. And or 5 million mosquitoes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. There's always some right around.
I was going to say like delineating wetlands in August in Florida is like 100,000% humidity, 5 million mosquitoes.
Yeah. There's times I felt I need a blood transfusion like when I get back to the office.
Oh man. For sure.
Yeah.
But, we didn't really talk about, you started off rowing. Do you still paddle, row, get out there?
Not as often as I would like. I paddleboard. That's way less intense. I do get in. Our high school still gets together for what they call an alumni race. And so all of us old farts challenge the high school kids.
No way.
That's fun. And, we've got a good streak going.
Losing or you actually?
No, we're like champions, like 10 years running, I think.
Wow.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll take it back. Yeah.
No, it's not me at all.
Legendary.
I'm now old enough to where like I'm in like the B or C boat.
Right.
But yeah, like the rowing team I came from, they've had really good success recently in like not just me going to college and rowing, but like people that are on the national team, and one person was in the Olympics. So put a couple of those people on the boat against some undersized high schoolers, and it's always fun. And then we bet breakfast. So we haven't had to pay for breakfast in like a decade.
That's fantastic. That's I like that.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah. And then not too often, but I was mentioned I was up in Wisconsin. That was for the 20th anniversary of me graduating, but they had the 150th anniversary of Wisconsin men's rowing. So we did like a big like banquet celebration for that, like a fundraising opportunity, and kind of where the program was and where it's going. So that was cool to see. Like I never get up there and don't get to see my old teammates as much as I'd like anymore.
Yeah. Time goes by super fast, as does the time on this podcast. So we are running out of time. Thank you for that segue. Is there anything that you would like to talk about we didn't touch on?
I don't think so.
Any words of wisdom you want to leave us with?
Oh, we're hiring. How about that?
Hey, that's cool.
Perfect. That's perfect.
There are lots of listeners that like to hear those words.
Yeah, perfect. We're hiring a couple of spots. We have a Tampa manager position open, so that would report to me. That should be on our website, atkinsrealis.com, or email me directly. And then we're looking at maybe a mid-level kind of scientist in the Orlando area. So yeah, there's a couple opportunities on the horizon that we're really excited about, and just hope to keep doing good work for our clients and the community.
Awesome.
Very cool.
Love it. Well, thank you so much. This is great.
Thank you.
And where can people get in touch with you if they would like to reach out to you?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, you can email me directly, ben.shepard, SHEPHERD, at atkinsrealis.com.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thank you.
We would like to again thank Perkins Coie for sponsoring this episode. And that is the end of our show. Thank you, Ben, for joining us today. Please be sure to check us out each and every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. Bye.
See you, everybody.